Hi everyone, today I want to do a video which is really difficult for me actually. For my regular viewers, you've all seen me make passing reference to sexual abuse and my experience with it. And I've begun to realise that I need to break the silence and talk about this more because this is one of the issues which can be at the very heart of so many eating disorders. It affects women and men, children and adults, and it's about time that I spoke about this. So I'm going to talk about my experiences, the types of sexual abuse, how it makes us feel, and how we can move forward from this trauma. So there are lots of different types of sexual abuse, which often involve physical contact, and this can be intercourse, fondling, oral sex, masturbation, anal or vaginal penetration, and then there are lots of other sort of forms of sexual abuse, such as exhibitionism, leering, and sort of sexual suggestiveness. It not always sort of involves physical contact. And often we don't have a clear memory of this, and that is okay. It's a traumatic thing. It's a normal thing for our body to start being like, no, I can't deal with that trauma. This is how I'm going to cope. I'm going to suppress these emotions. And it's scary because it's certain things that trigger it that we don't realize. And it can start coming clearer what happened to us. Often, particularly if it happens in sort of childhood, we can start questioning whether it actually happened, whether we've made it up, or were these awful people that made it up? No. Particularly for children, it's impossible for us to make these sorts of things up, and they are not simply made up, and it is all right to question yourself. It's really quite a traumatic thing, piecing things through together like a jigsaw, and that is really scary when you start piecing it through and start seeing the bigger picture, and sometimes we don't want to come to terms with that. So, my sexual abuse and my anorexia. I have been sexually abused twice. First of all, when I was 12 years old, I was sexually abused by a stranger, and this was just a one-off event. I sort of pulled across in when I was walking to the station, when I was coming back from the cinema with my friends, a very innocent thing, and then suddenly I was in an alley, been pulled aside into a car park, and I was sexually abused, and I won't go into detail with it really, because I don't think that's necessary. The second time I was sexually abused, I was 18 years old, and it was a much different form of sexual abuse. Number one, because I was in a sort of relationship with this man, and it lasted, I'd say, about 4 or 5 months. So I actually started coming back, and I was sort of stuck in this relationship, and it wasn't just sort of sexual abuse as in sort of forced, sort of without consent. It was very traumatic, as in things like I was tied up, put in closets, I was threatened with things like chainsaws, knives, fire. I was put in a lot of positions where couldn't tell anyone because of threats. So it was a really traumatic time, and I came out of that, and that is when my anorexia flew in heads first and took my life over. And this is when my anorexia got so severe, so severe. Which is understandable, really. So why did I feel like I needed my eating disorder to cope with this trauma? Number one, because I felt like it was a form of punishment. I felt so filthy, so dirty, so angry at myself for letting it happen, which I'll go on to in a minute. And also another part was to become childlike, to become innocent, undesirable, to make my body look like it wouldn't want to be desired by a man. And I wanted to sort of retreat back to my innocence and be like, wouldn't it be nice if this didn't happen and I was just a child again, and it was beautiful and wonderful and the world was a great, wonderful place. So that is why my eating disorder sort of flew in. But what I have learned is that you can never punish yourself for what happened to you. You need to recognize this, because you can't punish yourself for other people's actions. Punishment in whatever form will only put chains around your feet, basically, and you have to recognize that, okay, maybe you participated in the sexual encounter or encounters, but that person manipulated you, betrayed your trust, and made you do it. You were vulnerable, and they broke your trust and betrayed you by getting involved with that vulnerability. And it is really scary because it provokes these feelings of loss of trust, betrayal, fear, anger, and they're all valid emotions. And we need to realize that we're not the person that did the wrongdoing. We didn't do that. It was the other person. We need to really understand and forgive ourselves for letting that happen. Not letting it happen, for it happening because it was forced. Even if I went out completely naked, I'm not asking for it. I was not asking for it when I was 12. I was not asking for it when I was 18. So we need to begin to sort of forgive ourselves and stop blaming ourselves for what happened, because that is the only way that we can start healing, is to actually not even give the blame to someone else, but just accept that it wasn't our fault and to forgive ourselves for that happening. Because even though I know that wasn't my fault, saying it's okay, that awful thing happened to me, but I need to move on, I need to heal, and the worst is over. It can only get better. The sexual abuse has happened, and it's about making steps forward. So often sort of a sexual abuse can lead to two sorts of responses, which is that we sort of step back and say, oh my God, I don't want a relationship. I don't want any sexual experience at all. I want to separate myself from that form of engagement with someone, that form of relationship, even in a loving, caring way. Or it can go to sort of the sexualization of ourselves. This is the only purpose that I've got. This is the only reason why I'm here. And that is what happened to me when I was 12. And a lot of us who have been sexually abused and sort of fall in the latter category, we often get sexually abused more than once because we make ourselves, well, because we become vulnerable as a result, because we get these core beliefs which are entrenched in our mental state, in our sort of the way that we think and look at the world. We get these particular core beliefs, that that's our only purpose, that that's all we're good for, and that perhaps we were only made to be sexual objects. And I think that was really hard for me. I was like, I'm a bad person. How the hell have I been sexually abused so badly twice? How has this happened to me? I must have done something awful. No, no one deserves that. Even the worst person, and whatever that may be, would never, ever, ever deserve that. So you cannot blame yourself or think you're a bad person. You're not a bad person for someone else's actions. You're not a bad person for one part of your life. As long as you move and grow and recognize that, then that's all that matters. So a lot of the questions that we also ask ourselves is, why didn't I stop it? I was in that relationship for 5 months. I knew exactly what he was like. I would come out of a very, very scary situation and be there the next day. I'm asking for it, aren't I? No, I never, ever, ever was asking for that. It's because we get this sense often of fear. And fear can make you do crazy, crazy things. Fear can just absolutely destroy you, particularly when there's threats involved. Fear is a terrifying thing, and it can make you do things beyond belief, and people don't understand that, particularly when you hear things like domestic abuse. They're like, well, the woman's staying in that marriage. No, it's often, always, well, often, a lot of the time, sort of when it's someone that you know, because it quite often is someone that we know, that it's out of, we have love for that person as well. If they're a family member or they're in we're in a relationship with that person, we can sort of begin to question ourselves and question our relationship with that person. We're meant to love them, and they often say, but if you cared for me, you wouldn't tell. If you cared for me, you did this. That is manipulation, and that is someone taking complete advantage of a vulnerable individual. Hearing it from me, do you think I deserved any of the sexual abuse that I got? No. And neither did you. If you're watching this and you've been through it, you never, ever deserved that. Okay? And I'm begging you to recognize that the devastating effects of sexual abuse, which can be devastating through eating disorders, for example, aren't permanent. You can heal. You have survived the worst, the abuse itself, and you can now make choices and commit yourself to your own healing process, and heal with patience and kindness and love to yourself, and learn that it's possible not only to survive but experience what it means to be truly alive, to actually be in a relationship and be loved and cared for, to be in a sexual position and for it to be beautiful and wonderful and the way that it's meant to be. Sex is not scary. Sex is not meant to be a horrible thing. It's meant to be an experience which really ties us closely together with someone else, whether that's for love or an intimate connection. That's what sex is about. And what my advice is to you is that your eating disorder won't reverse what happened to you. Neither will self-harm. It may relieve the pain for a momentary second, but why give that person the credit? Why give that person the credit for slowly letting an eating disorder murder you? Why would you do that? That isn't going to help you heal. It's not going to stop the awful thing that happened to you, because it's awful, and it's accepting that that was awful, but it's in the past now. It's over. So what I think you need to do, and what I beg you to do, is often we keep the sexual abuse a secret. I kept the sexual abuse a secret for so long, or I blame myself, or I just didn't tell anyone. And it's so important to break that secrecy. Share what happened with someone, anyone. That can be someone on the phone, a friend, a family member. It's hard for that person to hear about it, but it's so important. When the minute I actually said, this is what happened to me, I could actually accept, you know what, it did happen. And actually it wasn't my fault. It wasn't, ever. So keeping a sexual abuse secret can only increase our way to isolate and lock ourselves away. Sharing it with someone else can give us the opportunity to be able to be helped. We need therapy. You need therapy. It is so, so hard for them core beliefs that follow on from sexual abuse to be able to tackle them alone, and do not tackle them alone. That is what I beg you. There is no how-to of recovering and healing from sexual abuse. I wish there was. And it is sadly one of the things that will perhaps haunt us at certain times of our life. We'll be triggered by a smell, by a sight, by a sound, by music, or just particularly if I see someone in the street that looks like the two men that abused me, I run a mile. So I'm just asking you, I feel like I've been recovered for a year. I now feel well, I feel healthy, I feel like I can be in a relationship without it being destructive or manipulated through sex or through anything like that. And it's a beautiful, beautiful place to be. And I really beg you to share it with someone, because that's all the advice I can give you, is to be able to seek help. I'm not a counsellor, I am not a professional in this field. You need to seek help from your friends, your family, professionals. So if you've got any questions regarding sexual abuse, I feel like I am at a point where I can now sort of answer these questions. So feel free to email me or comment below. And thank you so much for watching. And I hope that this experience, what I went through, can help other people sort of learn from it. And know that you're not alone. All these feelings that you're feeling, they're not abnormal. You're not bizarre. You're not strange. You don't deserve to be punished. None of that. You're a beautiful individual who had something awful happen to them and can now heal, move forward, and become an even better individual through the strength that you gain through saying, you know what, fuck what happened, fuck that person, that horrible person that did that. Be able to say that, because I used to feel like I couldn't say I'm angry. Say it. Say I'm angry. Say I'm scared. Say what you're feeling, because looking it away will not help. So much, much love to you all, and I hope you have a lovely weekend. Right, bye.